Taeho Kim pulled his jacket tighter as he walked through the cold metal corridors of his salvage ship. The Star Hunter was not much to look at, but it kept him and his crew alive in the dangerous outer rim of space. Outside the thick windows, he could see the endless field of broken metal and twisted ship parts floating in the dark. 50 years had passed since the war ended. 50 years since humanity learned its place in the galaxy. The alien races had won, and humans now worked, the dirty jobs that nobody else wanted. They fixed pipes, cleaned stations, and picked through the leftovers of old battles like scavengers. "Captain, you need to see this," Bo-Ra Park called from the engine room. Her voice carried that excited tone that usually meant trouble or treasure. In their line of work, it was often hard to tell the difference. Taeho made his way to where Bo-Ra was hunched over a scanner. Her dark hair was tied back with a piece of wire, and her hands were dirty from working on the ship's old systems. She had been with him for 3 years now, ever since her family's farm on New Busan was taken over by the Velthari for proper management. "What have you found?" Taeho asked. Bo-Ra pointed at the screen. "These readings make no sense. I'm picking up an energy signature that matches old human military codes. The ones from before the war." Jin-Woo Lee floated over from the navigation station. In the low gravity of the ship, he moved like a dancer, pushing off walls with practiced ease. His young face showed the curiosity that had gotten them into trouble more than once. "That's impossible," he said. "All the human warships were destroyed, or captured. Everyone knows that." Taeho stared at the screen. The numbers and symbols meant nothing to him, but Bo-Ra was the best engineer he had ever worked with. If she said something was strange, then it was worth paying attention to. "Where is this signal coming from?" he asked. "That's the weird part," Bo-Ra replied. "It's not from any of the wreckage around us. It's coming from deep space near the Kepler drift. The signal is weak, like it's very far away or being blocked by something." The Kepler drift was a dangerous place. Strange energy storms moved through that area of space, and ships that went there often never came back. The alien governments had declared it off-limits years ago, claiming it was too unstable for safe travel. "Could be a trap," Jin-Woo said. "The aliens don't like humans poking around in places they shouldn't be." Taeho had thought the same thing. The Galactic Council watched human activities carefully. They allowed humans to work, but only in approved areas and only doing approved jobs. Stepping out of line meant punishment, and punishment could mean death. But something about this felt different. The signal was old, really old. It felt like a voice from the past, calling out across the years. "How long would it take us to reach those coordinates?" Taeho asked. Jin-Woo checked his charts. 2 days if we push the engines. But, Captain, the drift is dangerous. The energy storms could tear us apart. And if the aliens catch us there, they'll ask questions we can't answer," Bo-Ra added. Taeho looked out at the debris field again. This was his life now, flying from one pile of scrap to another, collecting enough metal to buy food and fuel. His grandfather had told him stories about the old days, when humans had big ships and traveled to any star they wanted, when humans had been free. Those days felt like fairy tales now. The Velthari ruled most of the galaxy with their advanced technology and cold efficiency. The Nexari Collective controlled trade and information with their mechanical precision. The Thokran clans dominated the military aspects of galactic law with their warrior culture. Humans were allowed to exist, but only as workers and servants. "Set course for the Kepler drift," Taeho said finally. "Captain, are you sure about this?" Bo-Ra asked. "No," Taeho replied. But I'm tired of living like this. If there's even a small chance that signal means something, I want to know what it is." The next 2 days passed slowly. The Star Hunter was not built for speed, and it's old. Engines complained about being pushed so hard. Jin Woo spent most of his time checking and rechecking their route, trying to find the safest path through the dangerous space around the drift. Bo-Ra worked on the ship's shields, making sure they could survive the energy storms that swirled through the area. She had rigged extra power to the defensive systems, but she warned that it might not be enough if they hit a really bad storm. As they got closer to the coordinates, the signal grew stronger. It was definitely human in origin, using encryption codes that hadn't been used since before the war. But there was something else mixed in with it. Something that made their instruments go crazy every time they tried to analyze it. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy distortions ahead," Jin Woo reported. "It's like space itself is twisted into knots." Through the front window, they could see the Kepler drift. It looked like a giant storm made of light and color, stretching across millions of kilometers of space. Energy bolts danced between clouds of glowing gas, and the very air seemed to shimmer with power. "The signal is coming from inside that thing," Bo-Ra said, her voice filled with amazement and fear. "Something is in there, hiding in the storm." Tae-ho felt his heart racing. Every instinct told him to turn around and go back to the safety of known space. But the signal kept calling, growing stronger with each passing hour. "Take us in," he ordered. "Captain, this is crazy," Jin Woo protested. "We don't know what's in there." "Maybe that's exactly why we need to find out," Tae-ho replied. The Star Hunter entered the energy storm, and immediately everything went wrong. Alarms rang throughout the ship as waves of strange energy hit their hull. The lights flickered, and the gravity systems struggled to keep working, but Bo-Ra's modifications held. The shields absorbed most of the energy, and the ship pushed deeper into the storm. The signal grew stronger and stronger until their communication systems could barely handle it. Then suddenly, they broke through into clear space. What they saw, there would change everything. Floating in a pocket of calm space, hidden inside the energy storm, was a ship larger than anything Tae-ho had ever seen. It was 3 kilometers long, covered in armor that still gleamed despite decades in hiding. Along its sides, he could see the symbols and writing of the old human fleet. It was the Indomitable, humanity's greatest warship, the Supercarrier that had vanished during the last battle of the war, and according to their sensors, it was still alive. Admiral Haijin Choi opened her eyes to the soft blue light of the medical bay. For a moment, she could not remember where she was or how much time had passed. The stasis chambers were designed to make sleep feel like a single night. But something felt different, wrong. "Admiral, can you hear me?" The voice belonged to Dr. Dong-Soo Yoon, her chief science officer. His face looked older than she remembered, lined with worry and confusion. "How long?" she asked, her voice rough from the long sleep. 50 years, Admiral. 50 years, 2 months, and 16 days. The words hit her like a physical blow. 50 years. Everyone she had known outside the ship would be dead or very old. The war they had fought, the battle they had been losing when they entered the pocket dimension, all of that was ancient history now. What happened? Did we win? She asked, though something in Dong-Soo's expression already gave her the answer. No, Admiral, we lost. Earth surrendered 3 months after we disappeared. The human colonies were placed under alien administration. Most of our people are now classified as protected workers under the Galactic Council. protected workers. Nice way of saying slaves. Hyejin sat up slowly, her body still weak from the long stasis. Around her, other members of the crew were waking up. 50,000 people who had gone to sleep expecting to wake up to either victory or death. Instead, they had awakened to defeat and exile. Commander Mi Young-song approached her bed. The tactical officer looked as confused as everyone else, but her military training kept her focused. Admiral, the ship's systems are reporting full functionality. The pocket dimension held were completely operational. And completely alone, Hyejin replied. Over the next few hours, the senior staff gathered in the main conference room. The Indomitable had been humanity's greatest achievement, a massive carrier capable of housing an entire fleet. Its fighter, bays could launch 1,000 small ships, its weapons could destroy enemy fleets, and its defensive systems could protect entire planets. None of that mattered now. The war was over, and they had lost. The salvage crew that found us is still docked. In Bay 7, reported So-hee Kang, the intelligence officer. 3 people on a small ship. They seem as shocked as we are. Hyejin had met with the salvage crew leader, Captain Tae-ho Kim. He had told her about the galaxy as it existed now. Human colonies were supervised by alien administrators. Human technology was restricted to basic levels. Human children were taught that their ancestors had been aggressive and violent, and that alien rule had brought them peace. What about resistance? She had asked. There are rumors, Tae-ho had replied. People who remember the old days, but they're scattered and weak. The aliens don't need to be cruel. They just need to be patient. Each generation of humans forgets a little more about what we used to be. Now, sitting in the conference room, with her officers, Hyejin tried to process the magnitude of their situation. They had the most powerful warship ever built by humanity, but they were completely outnumbered. The galaxy had moved on without them. What are our options? She asked. We could try to contact Earth, suggested Dong-su. Negotiate some kind of surrender. The aliens might be willing to let us live quietly somewhere. And spend the rest of our lives as servants? Snapped Lieutenant Jun Ho-an, the fighter squadron leader. We didn't hide for 50 years just to give up now. What else can we do? Mi Young asked. Fight the entire galaxy? We're one ship against millions. The debate continued for hours. Some crew members wanted to find their families, to see what had become of the worlds they had left behind. Others wanted revenge against the aliens who had conquered their people. A few suggested they should disappear again, find another hiding place, and wait for a better opportunity. Hyejin listened to all of them, but her mind was made up. They hadn't survived 50 years in stasis just to surrender or hide again. They had a responsibility to the humans who were living under alien rule, and to the memory of those who had died fighting for freedom. So-hee, what do we know about current conditions in human space? She asked. The intelligence officer activated a holographic display. From what the salvage crew told us and what we've been able to pick up from communication intercepts, the situation is getting worse. The Velthari have been implementing what they call cultural correction programs in human colonies. They're systematically destroying human art, literature, and historical records. They're erasing us, Dong-su said quietly. The Nexari have been conducting behavioral modification experiments on human populations, so he continued. They're trying to breed aggression out of the human genetic line. Make us more cooperative and less likely to cause trouble. And the Thakran? Hyejin asked. They mostly ignore humans, but they've been recruiting some of our young people for their military. Cannon fodder for their expansion wars. The survival rate is less than 30%. Junho slammed his fist on the table. They're not just ruling us. They're destroying us piece by piece. Hyejin stood and walked to the large window that looked out into space. Somewhere out there, billions of humans lived under alien control. They worked in mines and factories, cleaned alien buildings, and raised children who would never know what freedom felt like. "We're going to remind them," she said finally. "Remind who?" Mi-young asked. "Everyone. The aliens who think they've tamed humanity, the humans who think they're beaten. We're going to remind them all what we really are." "How?" Dong-su asked. Hyejin turned back to face her officers. In her eyes was the same fire that had driven humanity to the stars in the first place, the same determination that had built the Indomitable and sent it into battle against impossible odds. "We're going to do what humans do best," she said. "We're going to survive, adapt, and fight back. Not with massive battles that we can't win, but with precision strikes that remind everyone that humanity is not extinct." Over the following days, the crew of the Indomitable began to understand their new mission. They would not try to reconquer the galaxy or restore the old human empire. Instead, they would become a symbol of human resilience, a reminder that some things could not be defeated by force alone. The ship's advanced systems, hidden for 50 years, would be their greatest weapon. The Indomitable had been built with experimental technology that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. While the aliens had perfected their existing technologies, humans had always been willing to try dangerous new ideas. "The question is," Hyejin said to her assembled crew, "are you willing to become legends? Because that's what this mission requires. We can't go home. We can't live normal lives. We can only fight, and hope that our fight inspires others to remember who they are." The response was unanimous. 50,000 voices speaking as one, ready to remind the galaxy that humanity was far from finished. The first strike came without warning. The Velthari military base at Kepler Station was processing another shipment of human workers when space itself seemed to tear open. A massive ship emerged from nowhere, its weapons already charging. "Commander." Zorthak barely had time to sound the alarm before the Indomitable's fighters swarmed his defensive positions. The human pilots moved like nothing he had ever seen, their small ships dancing between laser fire with impossible precision. "All units, engage the enemy," he ordered, but his forces were already being destroyed. Lieutenant Namsik, rolled his fighter through a spiral that should have torn his ship apart. Instead, the advanced inertial dampeners kept him conscious while he lined up another shot. His target, a Velthari cruiser, exploded in a shower of sparks and metal. "This is Wolf Leader," he reported over the communication system. "Defense grid is down. Transport ships are free to proceed." Behind the fighters came the rescue ships. They landed on the station's docking bays and began loading the human workers who had been scheduled for transport to the labor camps. These people had been told they were being relocated for their own protection. In reality, they were being sent to work in the dangerous mines of the Outer Rim. "Move quickly, but stay calm," Lieutenant Yoonji-bae told the rescued workers as they boarded her transport. "We're taking you somewhere safe." The workers stared at her in amazement. They had heard stories about the old human military, but seeing it in person was like witnessing a myth come to life. These were not the defeated, broken humans they knew. These were warriors. Within 30 minutes, the rescue was complete. The Indomitable had appeared, destroyed the station's defenses, rescued over 2,000 human workers, and vanished back into space. The entire operation had taken less time than a normal shift change. Commander Zorthak tried to explain what had happened to his superiors, but they refused to believe him. According to all records, humanity had no military ships left. The few humans who served in technical positions were closely monitored. There was no way they could have built something like what he described. But the evidence was undeniable. The base was destroyed, the workers were gone, and his own ship's sensors had recorded everything. A human supercarrier, larger than anything in the current Velthari fleet, had appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. Similar attacks began happening across the galaxy. Human labor camps were liberated in coordinated strikes that lasted only minutes. Alien supply convoys carrying human civilians were intercepted and their cargo rescued. Research facilities conducting experiments on human subjects were destroyed with surgical precision. Each attack was impossible for different reasons. The human ship appeared in places where no ship should be able to travel. It moved faster than physics allowed. Its weapons penetrated shields that had never been broken before. Chief Engineer Woojin Lim smiled as he monitored the ship's experimental systems. The aliens had no idea what they were dealing with. While they had spent the last 50 years perfecting their existing technology, humanity had been developing something entirely different. "How are the quantum processors holding up?" Admiral Hyojin asked as she visited the engineering section. "Better than expected," Woojin replied. "The 50-year rest actually helped stabilize some of the more unstable systems. We're operating at 95% efficiency. The Indomitable was built around principles that most alien races considered insane. Its quantum processors existed in multiple states simultaneously, allowing the ship's computer to calculate probabilities that normal systems couldn't handle. Its engines drew power from controlled tiers in space-time, generating thrust that violated conventional physics. Most importantly, its hull was made from programmable matter that could repair itself and adapt to different threats. When enemy weapons hit the ship, the hull analyzed the attack and developed resistance to it within seconds. The aliens think in terms of perfection," Woojin explained to the Admiral. "They build systems that work exactly as designed every time. We build systems that learn and grow and change. They can't predict what we'll do, because we don't always know ourselves." This philosophy extended to the crew as well. While alien militaries followed strict protocols and predictable tactics, the humans improvised constantly. Fighter pilot Jun Ho led attacks that looked random but followed a deeper logic that confused enemy commanders. "The trick is to think like a human," he told his squadron during a briefing. "Not like a soldier following orders, but like a person solving problems. Every battle is a puzzle, and there's always more than one solution." The psychological impact of the attacks spread faster than news of the attacks themselves. Human colonies across the galaxy began to remember stories their grandparents had told them. Stories about the time when humans had been free, when they had built great ships and explored the unknown. On the farming world of New Seoul, young Suhan received a coded message through channels that hadn't been used in decades. The message was simple: "We never surrendered. Are you ready to remember who you are?" Young Su had been 15 when the war ended. He remembered the day alien administrators had arrived to take control of his world. They had been polite but firm, explaining that humans needed guidance to prevent future conflicts. His parents had taught him to obey, to work hard, and to not cause trouble. But late at night, his grandfather had told him different stories. Stories about human heroes and human achievements. Stories about a time when humans had been equals in the galaxy, not servants. "Pass the word quietly. Young Su told his most trusted friends. Something is happening. Something big. Similar conversations were taking place on hundreds of human worlds. The return of the Indomitable was doing more than rescuing people from labor camps. It was awakening something that the aliens thought they had successfully buried: human pride. The Galactic Council called emergency sessions to discuss the crisis. Supreme Commander Zor Thackle of the Velthari demanded immediate action. "This rogue ship is undermining 50 years of careful peace-building," he declared. "If we don't stop it quickly, it could inspire widespread human resistance." Unit Prime 7 of the Nexari Collective processed millions of data points before responding. "Our probability calculations did not account for this variable. Human behavior patterns are deviating from predicted parameters. This suggests our understanding of human psychology was incomplete." War Chief Grektar of the Thokran was more direct. "Let them come," he growled. "My warriors have been bored with easy conquests. A real fight would be welcome." But the human ship refused to engage in the kind of direct battle the aliens could win. Instead, it continued its campaign of surgical strikes, always appearing where it was least expected and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. The Indomitable had become more than a ship. It had become a symbol of everything the aliens had tried to destroy: human independence, human ingenuity, and human refusal to accept defeat. And across the galaxy, humans were beginning to remember what those words meant. The Great Council Chamber of the Galactic Alliance had not seen such tension in 50 years. Representatives from every major species sat in their designated sections, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, electronic tones, and translated speech. Supreme Commander Zorthak L. stood at the center podium, his tall, elegant form radiating the controlled fury that the Velthari were famous for. His silver skin gleamed under the chamber's lights as he addressed the assembly. "Honored representatives," he began, his voice carrying the weight of authority, "we face a crisis that threatens the very foundation of galactic peace. A single human vessel has conducted 17 attacks on our installations, rescued over 30,000 human workers from their assigned duties, and destroyed property worth billions of credits." The chamber erupted in concerned chatter from dozens of different species. The Velthari had been the primary architects of the post-war order, and their reputation for control and efficiency was now being challenged by a ship that shouldn't exist. Unit Prime 7 of the Nexari Collective activated its communication array. The mechanical being's voice was emotionless, but precise. "Data analysis confirms the anomaly. The vessel designated Indomitable operates using technology that exceeds our current understanding. Its capabilities include faster-than-light travel, without detectable energy signatures, defensive systems that adapt in real time to incoming weapons, and fighter craft that maneuver in ways that should kill their pilots." War Chief Grektar of the Thokran clans slammed his massive fist on his delegation's table. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. "Enough talk! Send my fleet to hunt this ghost ship. My warriors will show these humans what happens when they forget their place." "Your warriors will die," replied Ambassador Hithron of the Corvani Trade Federation. The spider-like alien's multiple eyes blinked in sequence as it spoke. "This ship has destroyed every force sent against it. Perhaps we should consider negotiation instead of escalation." The debate continued for hours, but the underlying problem remained the same. The Indomitable had shattered the aliens' basic assumptions about human nature and capabilities. For 50 years, they had ruled based on the belief that humans were predictable, controllable, and permanently defeated. Now they faced evidence that they had been wrong about all three. Meanwhile, aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Hyejin gathered her senior staff to plan their next phase of operations. The ship hung in the shadow of a dead planet, its stealth systems making it invisible to any scanning technology the aliens possessed. Intelligence reports indicate that the aliens are mobilizing their combined fleets, reported So-Hee Kang. Over 500 ships are converging on human space. They're not just trying to capture us anymore. They want to make an example. Communications Officer Hyun-Woo Park looked up from his station. Admiral, we're receiving coded transmissions from human colonies across the galaxy. The resistance networks are awakening. People are asking for instructions. This was the moment Hyejin had been waiting for. The aliens' overwhelming response was exactly what she had hoped to provoke. By mobilizing such massive forces against a single ship, they were revealing their fear and desperation to their own populations and to the humans they ruled. Open a channel to all human colonies, she ordered. Full broadcast, maximum power. I want every human in the galaxy to hear this message. The transmission would reveal their location to the alien fleets, but that was part of the plan. Sometimes the most powerful weapon was not stealth or surprise, but the willingness to stand openly and declare your existence. Across the galaxy, humans stopped their work as the message began. On mining stations, in factory complexes, in research facilities, and on agricultural worlds, millions of people heard the voice of Admiral Hyejin Choi speaking directly to them. My fellow humans, she began, 50 years ago, we lost a war. Our ships were destroyed, our worlds occupied, and our people scattered. The galaxy told us that we were defeated, that resistance was futile, that we should be grateful for the BO. Peace that alien rule had brought us. On New Seoul, young Suhan gathered his neighbors around an old radio as the transmission continued. Some of them had never heard a human military officer speak with such authority and confidence. But we never surrendered, the Admiral's voice continued. We never accepted that defeat was permanent. We never stopped being human. Today, the Indomitable stands as proof that the human spirit cannot be conquered by force, cannot be contained by laws, and cannot be erased by time. In the Velthari capital system, Supreme Commander Zor Thakal watched the transmission with growing alarm. The human admiral was not calling for violent rebellion or revenge against the aliens. Instead, she was doing something far more dangerous. She was reminding humans of their own worth. We do not ask you to take up arms, Admiral Hyejin continued. We do not ask you to sacrifice your lives in hopeless battles. We ask only that you remember who you are. Remember that you are the descendants of explorers who crossed the void between stars. Remember that you are the children of inventors who built wonders from dreams and determination. Remember that you are human, and that means something the galaxy has never understood. The message ended with coordinates and a simple statement. The Indomitable will be at these coordinates in 24 hours. The alien fleets will find us there. Come and witness what happens when humans stand together. The effect was immediate and devastating to alien authority. On world after world, human workers began to act differently. They did not rebel or riot, but they stood straighter. They spoke with more confidence. They looked their alien supervisors in the eye instead of keeping their heads down. More importantly, they began to help each other in ways that the aliens' carefully designed social systems had been meant to prevent. Humans who had been isolated and competitive suddenly rediscovered cooperation and mutual support. The alien response was predictable but self-defeating. Increased security measures and stricter controls only served to confirm what the Admiral had said, that the aliens ruled through fear, not through legitimate authority. Young Su-Han made his decision as he watched Velthari soldiers patrol his neighborhood with weapons drawn. He gathered his most trusted friends and began making plans to reach the coordinates the Admiral had provided. Similar groups were forming across the galaxy, not armies or militias, but ordinary humans who wanted to witness what their own people could accomplish when they refused to accept defeat. The alien fleets converged on the designated coordinates, expecting to find the indomitable alone and vulnerable. Instead, they found something that made their carefully planned tactics useless. Witnesses. Hundreds of small civilian ships had gathered at the edge of the system. Human families, workers, and refugees who had traveled for days to see their legendary Supercarrier with their own eyes. They carried no weapons and posed no military threat, but their presence changed everything. The aliens faced an impossible choice. They could attack the Indomitable in full view of the human civilians, revealing themselves as the oppressive conquerors they claimed not to be. Or they could back down, admitting that they feared a single human ship enough to mobilize their entire combined fleet. Admiral Hyojin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the alien formations take positions around her ship. 500 warships against 1. By any rational calculation, the outcome was predetermined. But rationality had never been humanity's greatest strength. Hope was. Admiral Hee-Jin Choi stood alone in the center of the Indomitable's main hangar bay. The massive space, normally filled with fighter craft and military equipment, had been cleared except for a single table and 2 chairs. Above her, the hangar. Doors were open to space, held back only by an energy field that shimmered like blue glass. Beyond that field, 500 alien warships waited in perfect formation. Their weapons were charged, their shields raised, their crews ready for the battle that would finally end the human threat once and for all. But Admiral Hyojin had not called them here to fight. "Incoming transmission from the lead Velthari vessel," reported Communications Officer Sun Young Ryu from the bridge above. "Supreme Commander Zorthakal is requesting permission to board." "Permission granted," Hyojin replied. "Escort him." To the hangar bay. No weapons, no guards. Just him. The alien commander materialized in a column of silver light as his transport beam deposited him on the hangar deck. Supreme Commander Zorthakal was tall and elegant, as all Velthari were, with silver skin that reflected the hangar's lights. His large dark eyes showed intelligence and confusion in equal measure. "Admiral Choi," he said, his voice carrying the formal tones of military protocol. "I confess I do not understand. You are surrounded by our combined fleets. You have nowhere to run, no chance of victory. Yet you request a meeting instead of surrender. Why?" Hee-Jin gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Because surrender isn't what this is about, Commander. Please sit. Let me explain what you and your people have never understood about humanity." Zorthakal remained standing, his posture rigid with suspicion. "You will try to bargain? Offer some exchange for your lives? We have nothing to discuss. You have violated the peace, destroyed our property, stolen our workers. There can be only one outcome." "Sit down, Commander," Hyojin said again, her voice calm but firm. "What I'm about to tell you will change how you see this entire situation. And when I'm finished, you'll understand why this was never about military victory." Reluctantly, The alien commander took the offered chair. Around them, the hangar bay seemed enormous and empty, a space designed to hold the fighter craft of humanity's greatest warship. The silence stretched between them like a bridge across 50 years of misunderstanding. "Tell me, Commander," He-Jin began. "What do you know about human history before the war?" "You were an aggressive species," Zorthakal replied immediately. "Violent, unpredictable, dangerous to galactic stability. The war proved this. The peace that followed has been beneficial to everyone, including your own people." He-Jin nodded. Slowly. "That's what you believe, but let me share a different perspective. Humans weren't aggressive because we were violent by nature. We were aggressive because we were afraid." The alien commander's expression showed skepticism, but he remained quiet. "We had just discovered that we weren't alone in the galaxy," He-Jin continued. "For our entire history, we had believed we were unique, special, possibly the only intelligent life in the universe. Then suddenly we found ourselves surrounded by species that were older, more advanced, and more numerous than us." She gestured toward the open hangar doors and the alien fleet beyond. "We saw your ships, your technology, your perfect order and control, and we realized that by every logical measure, we were inferior. So we did what humans always do when we're afraid. We fought, and you lost," Zorthakal pointed out. "Yes, we lost. But you never understood why we fought in the first place, and that's why you've never understood how to truly defeat us." He-Jin leaned forward, her eyes meeting his directly. "We didn't fight because we wanted to conquer the galaxy. We fought because we were terrified of becoming irrelevant." For the first time, uncertainty flickered across the alien commander's features. "You see," He-Jin explained, "every other species you've encountered follows predictable patterns. When defeated, they accept their new position in the galactic hierarchy. They adapt to their roles and find their place in the established order. But humans are different." "How?" Zorthakal asked, his voice quieter now. "We don't accept irrelevance. We don't accept that defeat is permanent. We carry the memory of what we were and the dream of what we could become. The Indomitable isn't just a ship, Commander. It's a promise we made to ourselves 50 years ago, that no matter how badly we were beaten, some part of humanity would endure unchanged." The alien commander was silent for a long moment, processing this information. When he spoke again, his voice carried a new understanding. "You're saying that military defeat was never enough to truly conquer your species?" "Exactly," He-Jin replied. "You can destroy our ships, occupy our worlds, control our daily lives. But you can't destroy the thing that makes us human. Our refusal to accept that this is how the story ends." As if summoned by her words, a new presence entered the hangar bay. Captain Sung-Ho Jang of the Diplomatic Corps approached with Dr. Ah-Young Kim, the ship's xenobiologist. Behind them came representatives from the various alien species, Unit Prime 7 of the Nexari, War Chief Grektar of the Thokron, and others. "Commander," Dr. Ah-Young said as she approached, "we've spent the last 50 years in stasis, but we've also been studying. Our ship's computers have been analyzing every piece of galactic communication we could intercept. We understand your civilization's better than you might think." Unit Prime 7's mechanical voice buzzed with electronic harmonics. "Impossible. Human understanding of our cultures is limited by your emotional and illogical thinking patterns." "That's where you're wrong," Ah-Young replied with a smile. "Our emotional and illogical thinking is exactly what allows us to understand you in ways you don't understand yourselves." She activated a holographic display that showed the political structure of the galaxy. The Velthari value order and control above all else. The Nexari seek efficiency and logical perfection. The Thakran respect strength and honor in combat. Each of your species has defined themselves by a single set of values. And humans? War Chief Grektar rumbled. Humans are defined by our contradictions, Hyojin answered. We're logical and emotional, peaceful and violent, generous and selfish all at the same time. That's why you could never predict what we would do. We don't follow single patterns because we're not a single thing. The alien representatives exchanged glances, their various forms of communication creating a complex web of meaning that translated into growing comprehension. The attacks on our installations, Zorthakal said slowly. They were never meant to cripple us militarily. No, Hyejin confirmed. They were meant to remind everyone, alien and human alike, that humanity still exists as more than just workers and servants. Every rescue operation, every impossible escape, every display of technology that shouldn't exist was a message. What message? Unit Prime 7 asked. That defeat is temporary, but the human spirit is eternal. The silence that followed was different from before. It was the silence of understanding, of puzzle pieces falling into place, of a fundamental shift in perspective. War Chief Grektar spoke first, his voice carrying a respect that hadn't been there before. You seek recognition, not conquest. We seek our rightful place as equals in the galactic community, Captain Shung Ho confirmed. Not as conquerors, not as servants, but as partners. The negotiations that followed lasted for hours, but the real breakthrough had already occurred. The aliens finally understood that humanity wasn't a problem to be solved or a threat to be eliminated. They were a unique species whose greatest strength lay in their refusal to be defined by anyone else's expectations. The agreement reached that day wasn't a treaty of surrender or a peace settlement. It was a recognition of mutual respect between species that had finally learned to understand each other. As the alien fleets departed and the human civilian ships began their journey home, Admiral Hyejin Choi stood once again at the observation deck of the Indomitable. Around her, the crew prepared for their own journey, not back to hiding, but forward to whatever challenges awaited them as free humans in a galaxy that had finally learned to see them clearly. Communications Officer Sun Young Ryu approached with the final status report. Admiral, all systems secure. The crew is ready for departure. Where should I set our course? Hyejin smiled, feeling the weight of 50 years finally lifting from her shoulders. Wherever we choose, Officer Ryu. Wherever we choose. The Indomitable turned toward the distant stars, no longer a ghost from the past, but a bridge to the future. Behind it, the galaxy continued its ancient dance of civilizations, but now that dance included a partner who refused to follow anyone else's steps. And in the end, that made all the difference.